Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to, as you know from my introductory video, you know that I am doing a study of the films of Sidney Lumet. And the first film that I've watched, which I've seen a couple of times now, is one I'm sure that you're all familiar with, or you may be familiar with if you're a Sidney Lumet fan, and that is 12 Angry Men. Now this is the Criterion Collection edition of 12 Angry Men, and here's the front and back of that. This film, just to give you some stats on the film itself, is from 1957. It is in black and white. It's 96 minutes. It is also spine number 591 from the Criterion Collection. And what an amazing first film from Sidney Lumet. This film, every time I see it, is just completely blows me away. It's such a great film. I'm just going to show the inside as well, and then I'll talk about the movie a bit. It comes with this great booklet with these paintings. Of course, Henry Fonda on the front here in a painting. There's E.G. Marshall in the on the first page here. And then you see the cast. Now the cast is just amazing here. You have Martin Balsam, John Fiedler, Lee J. Cobb, E.J. Marshall, Jack Klugman in one of his first performances, Edward Binns, Jack Warden, Henry Fonda, Joseph Sweeney, Ed Begley, George Voskovec, and Robert Webber. So what a stellar cast. Obviously directed by Sidney Lumet, the writer Reginald Rose, and of note here also is the cinematographer Boris Kaufman, and there's a feature on Boris Kaufman in the supplemental materials. But it's basically in the booklet you see an essay, and then there's Jack Klugman represented in a painting, and then there's the essay. So this is just a great booklet from the Criterion Collection, as you might expect. If you don't have any Criterion Collection films, this might be a good starter one to get because it is an amazing film. I'm going to read the supplements on the back, and then I'll talk about a few of these. So this edition has a new high-definition digital restoration with uncompressed monaural soundtrack. It's got the original 1955 teleplay of 12 Angry Men from the series Studio One, so you have that on here as well. The production history of 12 Angry Men from teleplay to big screen classic. There's archival interviews with the director. There's a new interview with screenwriter Walter Bernstein about Sidney Lumet. There's a new interview with Simon about writer Reginald Rose. There's Tragedy in a Temporary Town, which Sidney Lumet began in the theater, but also spent some time working in television. And so this is a teleplay directed by Sidney Lumet in its full form from 1956. There's a new interview with cinematographer John Bailey about director of photography Boris Kaufman and the original theatrical trailer. So this is jam-packed with extra features. I would say of this, obviously after seeing the film, I watched the archival interviews with director Sidney Lumet, and I have to say, Sidney Lumet is someone who I could listen to for hours and hours talk about his process of making films, working in the theater, working in television. I mentioned in my first video also that there is a great documentary on Amazon Prime right now, but you can get a DVD of it called By Sidney Lumet. And he goes through his entire filmography basically in conversations. It's really a must-see for any Sidney Lumet fan. And I watch it a few times a year. I'm just so fascinated by it, and I could just listen to him talk for hours. So this movie has to deal with a jury that is deliberating a murder case. So obviously 12 Angry Men. And if you haven't seen 12 Angry Men, this might be a good time to turn off the video in case you don't want to be spoiled by it. I know it is an older movie, but if you'd like to go watch the film and come back to some analysis, I will be talking a little bit more in detail about the film. So this might be a good place to turn off the video. But by all means, come back and listen to the rest of the video. So 12 Angry Men is basically about that story. Sidney Lumet began in the theater, so he talks a little bit, especially in the interviews on the Criterion Collection edition of the movie, about his beginnings in theater. And you can see that very clearly in 12 Angry Men because most of the activity happens in the jury room, which is a very small room. There are some outside shots as well, but for the most part, it's that one location. And he really uses, he talks about this a little bit in the archival, in the interview, that he uses the camera almost as a character. And I just love well, the other thing he talks about too is his knowledge of lenses from working in television and how that impacted and how it helped him with this film. And you can really see that because using the camera as a character, he comes in very close. I love the close-ups in this movie. It's just amazing to watch. And also in theater, they use a term called blocking, meaning that during the rehearsal period for this film, which Sidney Lumet mentioned was about 2 weeks, he basically blocked the whole film like a theater play that takes place in this room, and then he worked the shots in through that rehearsal period. So you can definitely see that. You can see that also in the close-ups and the build-up of the drama that occurs during the movie. You know, Sidney Lumet also, as I've seen, as I mentioned before, I've seen so many of his films many, many times. There are some new films I'll be seeing during this particular study. Likes to focus on melodrama, psychodrama, men particularly, but characters in crisis. And this is definitely, this definitely applies to this particular film. And you really see how the characters work together. Again, to have all these actors of this caliber in this room working on this particular case is just amazing to see. And at the beginning of the film, it's very hot, and there's a lot of tension. You can definitely feel the tension between the jurors as they deliberate this particular case. And about maybe 2/3 of the way through the film, it starts to rain also, so there's a little bit of a relief. But the weather also becomes a bit of a factor in the movie, I believe anyway, to kind of relieve some of that tension as they have more conversations about the case. You know, this is a movie too that I feel like if you ever get selected for jury duty, this is a good movie to watch, because it really gives you a sense of how you need to be as objective as possible when you are considering any kind of a crime or any kind of a case where you would be part of a jury. So that's interesting to watch. I think in these particular times in history, in our particular time in history too, just about listening to other people's opinions, and rather than coming in with a preconceived notion about a case or about a specific event, listening to what other people have to say and how it might impact the way you feel about certain things, or understanding that you come to a jury or you come to situations with your own experience and how that can potentially be impactful when you're deciding on something like a man's life in this particular case. So I really love this film. This is just an amazing film by Sidney Lumet. You know, it's just amazing that this is his first movie, and he has so many great movies after this, but this is such a classic. And as I said before, if you're considering the Criterion Collection, this is definitely one to get, because it has so many extra features and so many different ways to study the film, understand where Sidney Lumet came from and how he got to this point where he's making his first film. Now keep in mind, as I mentioned before, he's worked in the theater. He learned a lot of his techniques from working in television, working the schedule of television, and you can really see that clearly here. Henry Fonda also produced this movie, and so this is his first role as producer. Sidney Lumet tells a very interesting story about Henry Fonda coming in to review the rushes, which the rushes are daily screenings of whatever the takes are during the day. And Henry Fonda coming in and being kind of uncomfortable with that particular, because he's an actor, so being uncomfortable with that role. The other thing that you can see very early on in this movie, or very early on in Sidney Lumet's work, is that Sidney Lumet understands the path of the actor very clearly, because he's spent so much time in the theater. So he understands what it takes to get specific performances out of people and push them to the point of drama, which is one of his, which is one of the things that you'll see in a lot of his movies, is not only characters in crisis, but characters that are engaged in this type of drama, which I particularly like in films. And so it's great to see that. So this is just a masterful first film by Sidney Lumet, and I'm so excited for this journey, having seen many of his films, but kind of studying his movies in a very different way. I'm going to be watching as many of the films as I can on physical media, like this one from the Criterion Collection. I don't have all the films. I'm watching some of the movies also on the Criterion channel, so I've been watching a little bit of Failsafe, which I started. But many of the Sidney Lumet movies, if you have the Criterion channel, many of these movies are leaving the Criterion channel at the end of the month. So I'm trying to watch a few of those before they leave the channel. And there are many that I have already on physical media. So thanks for joining me today. Let me know what you think about 12 Angry Men. Again, it's a huge favorite of mine. I'm a big fan of it. And I'd be interested to know what you think about the film, what you took away from the film. I didn't mention this in the beginning, but I'm not an expert in Sidney Lumet. I'm just a huge fan of his work. And so I'm really interested to see what you think about the film as well. Or if you have a favorite Sidney Lumet film. I know there were a few viewers that left comments in the original intro video on some of your favorites. So I'd be interested to hear if you have any other films that you would recommend. Thanks for joining me on this journey. I really appreciate it. If you like this video, click on like and subscribe to my channel too if you haven't already. I would really appreciate that. Thanks so much for watching today. I sincerely hope that everyone is safe and well, and I'll talk to you soon.